Okay, today we are doing a tier list. I love music. If you don't know that, I love music. Um, and I'm not like I do love music. I very much love music. I listen to music every single day, no matter what it, no matter how what in the mood I am in. I listen to music every single day. But there's one artist that I specifically listen to every single day, and that is Logic. I am a hip hop fanboy. I love hip hop. I've been listening to hip hop for years now. I mean, like first rapper I really listened to was like Tech Nine because my dad used to listen to him every like what seemed like every every day. So I I'm a huge hip hop fan. Let's just say that. I don't only listen to hip hop, but hip hop is the main like sort of music that I listen to every day. So today, what I decided to do is to do a Logic tier list, ranking every single album and mixtape that he's ever put out. There are two albums I have not listened to, or two mixtapes I have not listened to. That is Planetary Destruction and Psychological. I'm not gonna be a fake fan here, and say I've listened to every album because I haven't. There's only two I've not listened to, and those are the two that I've not listened to. So bear with me. But everything else you see here, I've listened to. And we're gonna rank them today. So we're just gonna hop right into it because I don't want to leave you guys waiting. Um, so yeah, let's get right into it. First off, if I sound weird, I did get my wisdom teeth out like a week ago, so bear with me. Um, so yeah, just bear with me. We're gonna start things off with Bobby Tarantino. The first Bobby Tarantino album. Here's what I'll say. It's not the worst I've ever listened to, but it's definitely not the best. Here's where it's hard to rank this cuz I do like this album, but I don't I'm going to put it in alright. I don't think it's amazing by any means. I don't think it's a good album, but I don't think it's a bad album. I think that there are some songs that I do like, such as Flexecution. I do like Super Mario World. Obviously, 44 Bars, probably one of the best songs he's put out. Um, because the flow, the beat, the lyrically, I think Logic is a master. Um, and he's I'm gonna say this. I think Logic is one of the most underrated rappers to this day. I don't think, obviously, he gets hella views and gets hella monthly listeners, but in terms of like rappers who deserve more, I think Logic is one of those rappers that I think he deserves better. Like he gets a lot of shit, but I don't think he deserves it. I think he deserves a lot better. Um, but by any means, I don't think his discography is perfect. Like I'm not saying his discography is the best I've ever seen, but he is underrated in my opinion. But Bobby Tarantino, I think it's all right. It's not bad. But it's not my favorite. So we're gonna leave it at that. Bobby Tarantino 2 is up next, and this is better than Bobby Tarantino 1 because the list of songs are just better. I think half the album of Bobby Tarantino 2 is incredible. Um, but it's still not like you know, it's not up here. It's not here. I think it's a good album. I think there are some questionable, things about this album, but I think that this was the point, like Bobby Tarantino too, this was at the point where Logic was starting to get into his more like, get into his new rap style. He's trying to get into he's trying to do something new and like you could definitely hear it. Like compare it to like Under Pressure and Incredible True Story. Even from Incredible True Story to Bobby Tarantino, you can hear the switch up between his voice and how he, writes his music. So I'm gonna put Bobby Tarantino 2 at good. It's a good album, but by any means, it's not an amazing album. But then we move on to Bobby Tarantino 3. I think you know where I'm gonna put this. I don't think it's a good album. I don't even think it's close to being an alright. Like Vaccine, I heard it and I was like, okay, this is hard. I like this. The beat goes hard. I do like the flow. Um, this was this album was the first album he dropped um, after he retired. He retired with No Pressure, but then he came back. I think that year that he dropped Bobby Tarantino 3, he also dropped the Young Sinatra collection. Um, so everyone was this was like it's 2021. You know, he's dropping two albums. Like, is he retired? Like, people are like questioning, is he retiring? What's happening? You know, because he said he was gonna retire with No Pressure, and then he drops Bobby Tarantino 3, and it's like, okay, are you really retired, or just like you're just putting out stuff that you had in the back, like you just didn't want to release it, but now you're just gonna release it because why not? You know. So it's it's not my favorite. It's not like an album I'm gonna go listen to like every day, but by any means, there is one song that I would listen to, which is Vaccine. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's not good. Let's just leave it at that. Move on to Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. I think it's grown on me. I'll tell you that much. I think this is no longer his worst album. I will say, I used to say this is his worst album he's ever put out. The worst, like any project that Logic has put out, this was his worst. But after you listen to Bobby Tarantino 3 enough, and then you go back and listen to Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, you realize maybe Bobby Tarantino 3 is his worst, and maybe this isn't as bad as people are saying it is. I don't think it's like a good album by any means. I think it's alright. I think there's some bangers in there, like you got Homicide and Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, probably some of my favorite songs from him, along with Keanu Reeves, and I think Icy is a great song as well. So this album has grown on me, just by not much. You know, I think if I listen to it more and more, maybe it will go more up. But in my opinion, I think it's alright. I don't think it's a good album by any means. I would definitely not listen to this over Bobby Tarantino 1, but there are songs on this album that I would listen to over Bobby Tarantino. So I'm going to put it there in alright, and we're going to leave it at that. Everybody. This is where Logic, like, because before this, Logic was like before Bobby Tarantino, or before everybody, you know, you had Bobby Tarantino 1, you had Bobby Tarantino 2, you had Incredible True Story and Under Pressure. You had these albums that were like, they're interesting, you know, they're like, you know, he's starting to grow as a person and as a writer of rap, and you start to notice that as it goes on, he drops Everybody, which was the album that I remember the day that this came out, because it was a very specific day. I'm not going to tell you what that day was, but the day this album dropped, I remember it distinctly. And I remember it, and I was like, this album's not bad, you know? It's not a bad album. I think this is actually a good album. I still think that to this day. I think this is a good album. I would put it over Bobby Tarantino too, because not because okay, I'm gonna tell you this right now. It's not because, you know, his most popular song is on this album. You know, the Suicide Hotline song is on this album. Not because of that. I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm actually not that big of a fan of the song itself. Like, I think the message behind it is amazing, and it's very heartwarming, and you know, you really think about it. But the song itself, not a huge fan of it. You know, I think it's to this point it has really gotten overplayed for me, so I'm not like the biggest fan of it. But the reason it's over Bobby Tarantino 2 is because I think a majority of this album he's spitting facts. Like, I think the writing, the beat choice, like I will say, Logic has no songs, in my opinion, that have a bad beat. Like, I think even some of his songs on Supermarket or in Bobby Tarantino 3 have absolutely amazing beats. But Everybody is a good album. I think it's got, I think this is the album where everyone was like, okay, where's Logic going? Because after Bobby Tarantino, everyone was like, Logic he's not it. I mean, to this day, Logic is my favorite rapper. And when you think, like, I think about it and I think he did get a lot of shit. Did he deserve it? I don't think so. But he did get a lot of shit because of the albums he was dropping, and everyone was saying he was stealing like lyrics and beats and everything like that. It's called sampling. If you've ever heard of it, if I'm being honest with you, I'm just gonna say it. It's called sampling. Um, so I'm just gonna say that. In that case, I think Everybody's a good album. The beginning of the first track, Hallelujah, and the end track, I can never say it fucking right. Africarian. I can never say it right, but Africarian and Hallelujah, the best intro and the best outro to any album I've heard probably. They fit so well, So Everybody, good album. Moving on, No Pressure, the final album Logic put out before he retired. So this is the last album he was ever gonna put out. That's what he said. This is 2020, and this is when COVID hit. So it was like, there's not much to do. He was not gonna tour because he couldn't, and he couldn't do real much. This was the point where he had his son and his wife, his house. So he was like set up basically for life. At this point, up until this point, Logic was set. To this day, he's set. I mean, breaking news if you've not heard, Logic sold his catalog today. Like today, he literally sold his entire catalog to another person that now I think he can't like make any money off of like his old shit now, like his his mixtapes and maybe even his early albums. So I don't know if it's like if the new shit that he puts out he's gonna get paid for that, or he's just not gonna get paid at all from his music. But that's how it goes. So No Pressure though, I think the album is great. I think it was an amazing send off for Logic. I'm gonna be honest, when I first listened to this, I was like, it's a good album, but it's not my favorite. Over the years, as I've listened to it over and over and more, I've started to come to the barrier and say that it's a pretty good album. I mean, it was an amazing send off for Logic for a year at least. And since like everybody was thinking this was the last album, everybody seemed to be pleased with the last album that he put out, and everybody was like, "Yeah, it's a good album," and I think this is an amazing send off for him, and I think it's got a lot of replay value. So yeah, I think that obviously this entire album, this is the sequel to Under Pressure, and he's kind of talking about how his life is going and how everybody his fans and everybody around him have kind of been wanting him to go back to the old Logic, go back to Under Pressure, go back to Welcome to Forever, that type of Logic. But he just couldn't, because why would he? He's improving as a human and he's improving as a rapper, so why would he go back? And he just doesn't want to deal with all the shit that he gets, so he, throughout this entire album, he's just kind of talking about that. So yeah, No Pressure, definitely not one of my favorites, but it's definitely an album that you listen to and you're like, yeah, this is fire. I think I think if out of a rating, I'll give every album a rating at the end of the video. How about that? So there you go. But yeah, No Pressure, definitely a pretty good. Supermarket. So Logic this was before Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, I think, or was this after? It was before or after Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, but this is 2019, and this was when he met his new wife, which is his wife today. I think after Young Sinatra 4 or something, around that time, I think 2018, beginning of 2019 or something, that he had a divorce with his previous wife, and this album Supermarket was kind of like that album he put out for his new wife, at the time girlfriend obviously, but now his wife. So it was a weird album, it was something different, like completely different album to from what you normally hear from Logic. It was not a rap album necessarily. It was only like a pop type album. It was a pop country, like a mix between all the genres mixed into one type album. And I won't lie, I'm not, like, as I said, I don't only listen to hip hop, so I don't mind this album. But I will say it's not great. I'm gonna put this in all right. I think it's not bad. I think it's something different, and I do like different. I want to listen to something different, so I think it was something new and unique, and I liked it. Um, I think the first like 4 or 5 songs I actually do really like. After that, I'm just kind of like, I don't know how I feel about this. So, it's like on the verge of alright, or it's on the verge of not good. Like it's almost at not good, but it's not there. It's still in the alright category. So we're gonna leave it there. Okay, we move on to the incredible true story. This is my favorite album by him. I'm gonna be honest. This album is uh, like it's a beyond amazing. It is like literally like it is beyond amazing. This album was such a treat when I first listened to it because I loved it. Like I loved it. It is like there's no bad songs. I'm gonna be honest. There is not a single song on this album I can tell you that is a bad song. Even like some of his least played songs on this album, like "I Am the Greatest" or and "The Incredible True Story." Like those songs even are really good. But specifically on this album, there are 2 songs that are in my top 10 songs he's ever put out, which is "Young Jesus" and "City of Stars." So this album overall, absolutely phenomenal. The skits in between are amazing. Like obviously, you listen to it over and over, you kind of get bored of it. But first time listening, you're thinking these skits are great. I love them. They fit right. And it was something different from Logic. I think this was the point where this was when Logic really went big. Like this was the album that Logic became Logic. Like this was him now. So yeah, I think this album's amazing. I think most people would say this album is probably one of his best albums he's ever put out. And I think this was the point after this, like Incredible True Story, people say this was his last good album before Under Pressure came out. So before Under Pressure, people would say Incredible True Story, that was his last good album because everything after that was just like, what the hell is this, But me personally, I don't think this was his last good album before or No Pressure. There were good albums before that, and to this day, there are good albums after. So this is my favorite album, no questions asked. We move on to his first mixtape of the list, which is Undeniable. Young Sinatra, Undeniable. This is... See, here's the problem. There's two mixtapes that I really, really love, but it's so hard to rank them because I can't pick one over the other, but at the same time on a day where it's hard to choose. I'm going to put Undeniable in amazing just because it's a classic. I mean, this came out 2012, 2013, I think. 2012, 2013, one of the years. But this mixtape is phenomenal. I think that this was like peak Logic in my opinion. Like Undeniable was like Logic at his peak, like his literal peak. And I think people were expecting, like when you released his first album, obviously this first album's amazing. People were expecting it to sound like this, Obviously, he couldn't because a lot of the reason that you don't see music, his mixtape music on Spotify is because a lot of his old shit is copyrighted. He used copyrighted like beats, like he used like um of fucking I'm trying to think of the people he used. I mean, he used like Jay-Z, Tupac, like he used the big names. He used their beats. So he really can't put them on Spotify. Um and I wish they were, man. The songs that he put out back then, holy god, they are amazing to say the least. I think this was the album that has Dead Presidents 3. It is. I just remember that. This mixtape had Dead Presidents 3, and that is my favorite song that Logic has ever put out. So I gotta put it up there, man. Yeah, I'm gonna put it up there. So it goes into amazing. For Under Pressure, this is his first album, his first debut album that he put out, and what an album. People will say this is his best album. I personally like Incredible Story better, but you can have your own opinion. My opinion is Incredible True Story is better than Under Pressure, but Under Pressure is still like top-notch Logic. Like it is still the Logic that when you think Logic, you think Under Pressure. You think that is his album that really comes to mind because so many bangers. Like the entire album, there's just non-stop bangers after like one after the other, another after another. Like it just keeps going. Like from the beginning of the album to the end, just continuous, just absolute crazy beats, beat choice, flow, and lyrical ability. So Under Pressure deserves an amazing, absolutely. Vinyl Days. Now, 2022 came around, and Logic said, I'm going to put out a 30-song album. I'm going to put out a 30-song album, and everybody lost their minds because everybody was like, what the hell are you doing? You're going to put out 30 songs on one album, and you're expecting it to be good? He made this album in, I think, like a couple days because he wanted to get out of his contract with Def Jam at the time because Def Jam they made Logic who he is today basically, but they also kind of fucked him over at the same time. So Vinyl Days, he was like, I got to get out of this contract, so I'm going to put out a 30-track album and see how it goes. And surprisingly, it did very, very well. I think this is one of his best albums he's ever put out, in my opinion. Like, it's honestly crazy. I'm gonna put it. I don't think it's better than his Undeniable mixtape, just because there are 30 songs. Not every single song is amazing, but I think that a majority of the songs, when I mean majority, I mean like 95% of the songs are just crazy, like absolutely crazy. I remember Twitter flamed him so hard because of this. Like, this was when, to this day, Twitter's toxic, but Twitter was so toxic, and they were like, what are you doing? Why are you going to put out a 30-track album and expect us to like it? And then it came out, and then everybody liked it. So, not everybody, but most people loved this album, and will say this is one of his better albums, and possibly his best album since Under Pressure or Incredible True Story. So I'm going to put it in amazing, absolute banger, and still listen to it to this day. So there you go. Mixtape. Next up, Welcome to Forever. This is this is the thing, because it's Undeniable or Welcome to Forever for me, but I choose Undeniable over Welcome to Forever. Welcome to Forever is still amazing. Like, it's still an amazing mixtape. Like, this was like, okay, I said Undeniable was peak, but I think Welcome to Forever might have been peak Logic. I'm going to be honest. Like, this was, I believe that Welcome to Forever was his last mixtape before he dropped Under Pressure. I think it was 2013 that he dropped Welcome to Forever. So I believe this was the last mixtape he put out before he became a Spotify, before he hopped on Spotify. So I'm gonna put it Yeah, I think that. So I'm gonna still put in amazing. Not, and that's it. Let's put it there. Young Sinatra's up next, or not Young Sinatra. I'm dumb as fuck. Young Broken Infamous, first ever mixtape that he put out, or I guess I shouldn't say that. It's not the first mixtape he put out because Psychological technically is. Um, but Young Broken Infamous is the first like quote unquote I guess good mixtape you could say. I mean I never listened to Psychological, so I could not tell you, but Young Broken Infamous deserves a pretty good. I don't think it's I don't think it's like amazing, but I do think it's a pretty good Like I think it's a good album that you like go or mixtape that you go back and listen to, and you're like, he sounds different, but he still has bars. Like he has still got bars, and it even is in his old days, you know. Um, Next up, Young Sinatra. This mixtape is better than No Pressure, in my opinion. Okay, I'm just gonna put that. I think it's better than No Pressure. More songs that I like on Young Sinatra. This mixtape gives me nostalgia. Really, like when I listen to Young Sinatra, it gives me nostalgia because I think this was the first mixtape that I ever listened to from Logic. I think this had As I Am, which was one of the first songs that I listened to from Logic. You know, back in the day, you had the FaZe Clan with Call of Duty trick shotting, the montages. You know, you had all that. That was when I got on Logic. So, I'm going to put it there, and we'll leave it at that. Young Sinatra 4. People give this a lot of shit. I'm going to be honest. Young Sinatra 4 is not a bad album. I don't think it's even close. Because this man managed to get the entire of the Wu-Tang Clan on a song with him. That's impressive. And for that, I'm going to put it in the top of good. I think it's one of the better recent, I guess you could say before his retirement, quote unquote. This was one of his better albums because I think that the track list of this was amazing. Obviously, he's kind of the cover of it. He's kind of making fun, or not making fun, but he's copying the mugshot of why am I blanking on his name? Why am I blanking on his name? Oh my god, dude, whatever. Basically, he's copying the Young Sinatra mixtape. He's copying that just with him in the mugshot instead of the songwriter. I forgot his name, dude. I'm blanking so hard right now. I'm sorry. But yeah, I think this album gets a lot of shit, but it's really good in my opinion. It's a really good album. So, I'm going to put it there. We have the final one. His most recent project, College Park. This has gotten really good reviews. Like, at least not, but, I mean, if your name is, Anthony Fantano, you probably didn't give it a good review, but for the most part, Logic fans and also fans who used to be fans of Logic came back, listened to College Park, and would say this is his best album since Under Pressure, or since Incredible True Story. So, I think for that reason, I mean, I listen to it, like, every day. I went to his tour. That was the best experience I ever had. This was last week. I went to his show last week in Denver. And I went to his show, and it was lit, to say the least. This album, I'm gonna say it right now. This is probably. It's hard to say. I'm gonna put it. I think it's top 3. I'm gonna be honest. I think it's top 3 Logic projects ever. I will say towards the end of the album, it does get kind of weaker, but the beginning of the album and the beginning of the album is like, holy shit, this is Logic, but he's back. Like, I think people will say that Logic is back to his old ways, but it's also kind of a new Logic at the same time. He's entering a new era of Logic, and I think that is what we need and what I want. So, I think it's top 3, and I mean, it's amazing. So I'm gonna put it there, ladies and gentlemen. That is the end of the video. Let me know your thoughts on this. I mean, I love Logic, so I'm biased, but I think he's one of the best rappers that has ever rapped in the past 13 years. I think in the recent times of the whole, DaBaby and Lil Baby, and even like the Kendrick Lamar era, I think that this Logic is one of the best rappers, in my opinion, the best rapper since like 2000, and if I'm being honest, since like Tech 9, which was like 1999 or something. So I'm gonna give Logic some credit. He does not deserve all the shit he gets. But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.